记得订阅，怎么唱
？Pace and space, and the way teams switch switch everything now, it'd be very challenging. To run the triangle, and obviously the triangle was great. In his time was great offense. Tex Winter, obviously, great and Phil and them implementing that into the NBA and having that that pinch post game with the gaggle action on the backside, being able to read and react off of there.
2-man and 3-man.
2-man and 3-man games. I thought it was definitely a great ecosystem to have. I just think the game is so much more spread out now. The 3-point shooting now, the attempts on 3-point shooting, the space. Obviously, back when they were running it,
all that stuff was inside.
Yeah, everything was inside the 3-point line. Bill Cartwright and Luke Longley and. Horace was, kind of a hybrid. He shot a lot of long twos, but none of those guys, Dennis Rodman, none of those guys was really shooting threes.
Right.
So, they built a system that was perfect for their personnel.
Right.
But now the game is just so much different. To try to run the triangle offense right now, it'd be very challenging, just because how the game is played and also how defense is covering. Ron
Solid
Artest,
granite.
Really good with his hands. Laterally was really good, strong as an ox. I played against him my early years when he was in Indiana. I mean, it was challenging, for sure. It was one of the best defenders probably I've played against.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Especially you go back to, back in my era and your early career, like the game was different, right? Like you talk about defenders, you're thinking about rim protectors typically, Tim Duncan, just his feel for space, ability to block shots, KG, had some versatility to it as well. Incredible communicator. Then you think about the guards. I mean, I came in the league, MJ was one of the best defenders. But point guards, I always give Jason Kidd a nod, he didn't. Jason doesn't have a career highlights of dunking the ball. I mean, obviously he could, but that wasn't his game. But his mobility, explosiveness, his lateral quickness, he was a freaky athlete in a different way, right? Pretty remarkable mental toughness and resilience they have. They never stop playing.
Yep.
Never stop playing.
Yep. Boom. Bingo.
That's the number
That's the
one.
answer right there.
They don't stop playing. And then the other part of this, I think it's important for fans to recognize, as players, we don't want to admit this, but you play to win or you play not to lose. And at times when you have a 14-point lead with 3 or 4 minutes left, you're looking at the clock like, how do we manage the clock? Because it would be stupid not to.
Right.
But what does that do to you?
Yeah.
You're trying to find the balance about being intelligent, still being forceful and aggressive, but not being silly, not being cavalier. And so what it does is it innately sometimes gets teams on their heels. They're trying to manage the clock, then win the game.
Yep.
So I think there's a nice switch in dynamic that makes the game. That's why basketball's great, right? One team's got nothing to lose. We already got beat.
Yep.
We're down 14 with 3 minutes left or whatever. We're
let's
beat.
see what we got.
Let's go.
Yep. I think the responsibility that a head coach has on, the things that he has to prepare for and the things that he has to get the guys ready to play, is so much already, and for the assistant coaches to be able to take some of the burden off the head coach, either with helping with substitution patterns, helping with all the personalities in the locker room. A head coach shouldn't have to deal with that all the time. Now I understand, I've had fortunate enough in my career to have head coaches that had an open door policy. If you had a problem, come and talk to me. But on a day-to-day basis, a head coach shouldn't have to be facilitating that all the time, because there's ups and downs and things, and guys have their emotions throughout the course of a season. And if you have great assistants, they can, they can tune that down. They can help with that, facilitate that. And also, just the stuff like the small things that happen when guys get to the arena early, or guys get to practice facilities early, or being able to have assistant coaches that come out there and work with you, watch film with you, get on the court with you, things of that nature, and just conversate throughout the rest of the rest of that day, throughout the rest of the games, on the road, whatever the case may be. So, I think assistant coaches are very vital to team success. I mean, where do we start?
Yeah. So first of all, usually NBA assistant coaches have 1, 2, 3 players that they're responsible for.
Yep.
So that they have to work on film, their routine. You know, in the NBA, just for fans, everyone's got to have a routine. You play so many games, different time zones, you're traveling. Some guys are high minute guys, some guys don't play and got to stay ready. You know, maybe we start there. Like, what does it look like on a staff with an assistant coach and his responsibility to a player?
Well, yeah, I mean, you started off by saying, in the sense of when it comes to routine, you know, guys have a routine and they're locked in on that, you know, and like you said, you're changing time zones, you're in different cities, you know, but the one thing that never changes is the time that you're supposed to be on the court, the time you're supposed to be in the weight room, the time you're supposed to be in the training room, you know, getting that work done. Now, you have some of the older vets, sometimes it could change kind of just a little bit depending on, you know, if they played a lot of minutes the night before, or if it's 3 games in 4 nights, you know, they might switch it up a little bit. But for the younger guys and for the guys that's like, you know, 5th, 6th, 7 years into the league, it has to stay the same. And guys go off that routine, and the assistant coaches is the ones that are, you know, you're accountable for your own work, obviously, but the assistant coaches be on you about it. And
one thing just to mention is usually NBA film rooms nowadays are built with 4, 5, 6 guys that have played, at least 4 or 5 of them have played in college or maybe overseas, so they can play against your young guys, just have enough bodies, because the rotation guys can't play every day.
Yeah.
So you need guys to play against them, whether it's 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. So that's an important thing for people to recognize. You find guys that are intelligent, hardworking, that play the game, that you can teach the film stuff to, but they're able to get on the court.
I mean, it's funny you say that, because, I mean, one of our assistant coaches who pretty much works day to day with Bronny was James Harden's college backcourt mate.
Okay.
So, you know.
So did he get any shots in college?
Probably not. Probably not. No.
We
No, he brought the ball up, gave it to James.
Yeah.
James, do your thing. But like you just said, those guys are, you know, either played in college, played overseas, you know, and so when they're getting out there, they're like really going, you know, obviously they're going at the guys, and those guys are going at them as well, and it's still fun. It's still competitive, you know. So, you know, having that ordeal is definitely, you know, great for the stay ready guys for sure. My first stint in Cleveland when Mike Brown took over, you know, 2 guys that was basically, you know, ran a lot of our things. Mike Malone was our assistant coach.
Yeah.
Lloyd Pierce was our player development guy. Chris Gent was one of our player development guy. And Mike Brown gave them a lot of the reign,
right?
You know, and obviously Mike Malone's an NBA champion as a head coach, you know, and obviously, you know, you see Lloyd Pierce now is right there next to, you know, Rick Carlisle in the finals right now, you know, so, you know, those guys get a lot of responsibility, you know, and I think there's a sense of pride too when you become like an assistant coach and you start getting that responsibility where now you're doing the breakdowns of teams and you're doing the scouting. So you come in, you do the scouting, you're saying, okay, this is the personnel, this is who you're guarding, this is the things they're gonna run, this is how we're gonna prepare for them. And if that assistant coach, if you win that game that night because of your scout, the players start to feel a certain way too about it. Like, you know, you start knowing, like, if you got 3 or 4 coaches and one of the coaches is doing the scout and we're winning those games, you know, you get like excited for that coach to come up and talk again. Coaches has always gotten the most out of me and got the most out of the teams that I've played on since I was a kid to now. It's just like, you know, not sugarcoating it, not being afraid to have that conversation. And then just having a clear cut, you know, understanding of like, okay, being prepared, you know, when a coach is prepared and you know, it's every day, it's the practice, it's the film sessions, it's the games, obviously. Wins and losses take care of themselves, you know, the ball bounces in different ways and, you know, that's things you can't control, but what you can control is like, how prepared do you feel when you walk out on the floor as a player, you know? And I think that your coach and the coaching staff, you know, put you in position to feel like, okay, we have the answers to the test, and let's go out and execute that.
I mean, this is a different question. Right. Of course we can.
Of course we can.
But why would we?
There's a couple things in FIBA that I like. when it comes to the rules, and obviously I've played a lot of FIBA games, being part of Team USA. The physicality that you're allowed to play with, is awesome. But we talked about this too. You're asking this question, but do fans want to see playoff basketball physicality for a full 82-game season? We discussed that. We don't have the answer to it. We don't know. It's for the fans. You guys talk to us.
But also straight zone.
Or
center can just sit in the middle of the paint.
Yeah. Do we want to have it where you could just play straight zone and Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert and those guys can literally just sit right there in the middle of the paint and they never have to leave. Do we want to see that type of game? The 40-minute game is intriguing.
It is
because the game happens so damn fast.
Right.
So there's no.
Isn't that crazy how international games can be over?
Oh my goodness. Yes, and you have no there's no easing into an international game.
Right.
And that gives it a little bit more sense of urgency. So that's something to discuss. I've always I've been very intrigued with the goaltending rule.
I was going to ask you.
I actually love it. I love it. It's exciting. It doesn't happen as much as you would think.
Right.
And even when you're playing against the international guys and this is their rule, there's times where the ball is tinkering around the rim and they just you kind of get oh shit, I should have went got it.
It's harder than it looks.
It's harder than it looks, but I think that's I actually like the goaltending rule. It's pretty cool.
That's an interesting point because maybe I'm biased thinking NBA athletes are so, amazing athletes that they would become such a big part of our game. But I don't know. It's not that easy, right? You're looking to box out. You're looking to, defend. You're in a rotation, whatever it is. Right. Then to just be there flat-footed to be able to go up and get a ball off the rim, it's not as straightforward.
No, it's not as straightforward.
I'd be scared if it did. I wouldn't like it if it was happening all the time.
Right.
There's a lid on the bucket.
Right.
But I think there is something to it. I wouldn't be opposed to exploring it.
Yeah. We have the G League.
We have the G League.
We have the G League.
The G League
we got Summer League, the Showcase. We can try a couple. Yeah. I don't think the whole FIBA rules, I don't, but there's some things that we could possibly just tinker with maybe in the G League and the Summer League and see how it looks.
Yeah, look, LeBron, what team would you coach if you were become a coach? Let me just stop that one right now and say, please don't coach. Please
There's
don't
no
coach.
way. There's no way, guys.
Please don't coach from Alfonso Taylor. Thanks for the question, but
Alfonso Taylor, appreciate you for a kind question, but it ain't happening. No team.
That's a zero chance.
Zero chance.
If you're counting at home.
Zero chance.
好咯，那以上就是今天的影片。喜欢这部影片，请记得按赞、订阅以及分享给更多人知道。我是这么John，我们下次再见喽。